We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
The insurance document wasn't expected in that drawer. I was searching for my grandmother's cornbread recipe card, the one Roger often praised during our 42 years of marriage. Instead, my fingers felt a thick manila envelope, hidden among outdated tax returns and forgotten birthday cards. I may have missed it otherwise, but the date stamp, March 17th of this year, just 3 weeks ago, caught my eye. As a 64-year-old woman, I rarely believe in coincidences. 4 decades of teaching high school English had sharpened my observation skills, my knack for spotting discrepancies in narratives. This envelope, unknown to me, concealed in a drawer Roger knew I seldom opened, signaled the start of an unforeseen story. I gently extracted the papers, arranging them on the polished oak table where we'd shared countless meals, raised our children, and aged gracefully together. The afternoon sun filtered through the bay windows, casting light on a document's prominent title, Life Insurance Policy. A faint skip beat in my chest, unremarkable as we had life insurance policies. Roger and I held modest policies for each other, acquired years ago when our children were young. However, this was an unfamiliar document, not concerning Roger, but me, worth $2 million. $2 million that hadn't been accounted for the previous month during our annual financial review meeting with our advisor, a sum neither mentioned by Roger. Scrutinizing the dates closely, I found that the policy started on March 10th, and the initial premium payment was processed on March 15th. A nagging feeling tugged at my thoughts. I grabbed my phone, searching my calendar. There it was, from March 8th to 14th, my visit to our daughter Sarah in Portland. I'd traveled to assist with our newest grandchild, Emma, who arrived 2 weeks premature while Sarah's husband was absent on business. Roger declined, citing a worsened arthritis, making the long flight uncomfortable. I had been away for a week. The insurance policy had been taken out while I was across the country. A whistle from the kettle jolted me. I neatly refolded the papers with shaking hands, leaving them untouched. As I brewed my tea in the afternoon, I struggled to make sense of what I'd uncovered. Maybe it was harmless, additional protection as we aged, a secret he intended to share later. But why conceal it? Why not discuss it during our routine Sunday financial conversations? And why so extensive? Our home was debt-free, our children had successful careers, we lived modestly on our pensions and savings. But we were never rich. $2 million was an unprecedented amount. As I sipped my Earl Grey, a recollection emerged. 4 weeks ago, upon returning from my book club, I observed that Roger appeared preoccupied, scarcely looking up as I entered the room, engrossed in his laptop instead. "Appear to be distracted," I remarked. "Oh, just doing some research." "On what subject?" He swiftly closed the screen. "Nothing significant. How is your book?" I didn't think much about it at the time. With 42 years of experience, you learn to give each other space. Now I find myself wondering about his intense research. Meanwhile, the garage door opened, signaling Roger's early return from golf. Taking a deep breath, I decided to observe rather than question. If my suspicions were unfounded, I would feel relieved. If they weren't, I'd need more than an enigmatic insurance policy before jumping to conclusions. "Elena," came Roger's voice from the entranceway, followed by the usual thud of his golf bag against the wall. "You back?" "In the kitchen," I called out in response, masking my emotions with a neutral expression. He emerged from the doorway, standing tall and still attractive at 67, with silver hair and the same blue eyes that had captivated me at university. He smiled, a smile that once made my heart race, but now sent shivers down my spine. "You're back early," I remarked. The game ended earlier than anticipated. Ted wasn't feeling good. He moved towards the refrigerator, grabbing a water bottle. "What have you been doing?" A lie slipped out effortlessly, merely arranging some recipes. "I thought I'd prepare your favorite cornbread for dinner." Roger's smile broadened. "That sounds delightful. You know how much I adore your cornbread." I scrutinized his face for any hint, any sign of hidden intentions. There was none, just the usual expression of a man I believed I knew more intimately than anyone else in the world. That night, as Roger slept peacefully by my side, I lay awake, pondering. Maybe I was being overly suspicious. People purchase life insurance policies frequently. However, everything about it seemed amiss. The timing, secrecy, and size of it all. I required more details, and I knew exactly how to pursue them. The following day, as Roger attended his weekly physical therapy session with Dr. Weiss, I would embark on my inquiry earnestly. Unbeknownst to me, What I would uncover over the next few days would fundamentally change everything I believed about my life, my marriage, and the man who had spent over 4 decades by my side. A fresh morning arose with the purity only a spring day in New England can provide. Sunlight danced through our bedroom curtains, creating patterns of light and shadow on the walls. Roger was already awake. I could hear him in the kitchen, the comforting sounds of coffee brewing and radio news softly playing. I lingered in bed a moment longer, mulling over my thoughts. Today was Thursday, a regular day for Roger's shoulder therapy session with Dr. Weiss, providing me with uninterrupted time to dig deeper. Descending the stairs, I found Roger at the kitchen island, reading newspapers and sipping coffee. His smile was surprisingly ordinary, given the suspicion of his wife's endangerment hanging over him. "Good morning, dear," he said. "Coffee's fresh." I offered a reciprocal smile, guarding our usual interaction. "Thanks." Apart from therapy, perhaps a quick visit to the hardware store this afternoon sounded good. Fixing that wobbly railing on the back deck was on my mind for the weekend. He took a sip, commenting, "You." It turned out he was referring to a book club committee meeting at noon. They were finalizing next month's title selection. Another casual falsehood, as book club wasn't scheduled until the following week. Roger returned to his reading material, leaving me questioning the truth of my discovery from yesterday. Almost doubting, but not quite. After Roger departed for his appointment, I waited a while before he could return for forgotten items, then commenced my investigation in earnest. Initially, I explored his office, a compact den converted for work, housing his crucial documents and personal computer. His laptop required a password, logically enough, but with 4 decades of marriage, there were hardly any secrets left between us, or so I assumed. However, the standard password he used for everything, Alenade 1979, our meeting day, failed to unlock it. I tried other significant dates like our anniversary, birthdays, and children's birthdays, but all attempts fell flat. This silence spoke volumes. Roger had changed his password to something unknown to me. Moving on to his desk drawers, I meticulously searched each one. They mostly held office supplies, outdated technology manuals, and used greeting cards. But in the lower drawer, hidden beneath a pile of obsolete appliance warranties, I discovered another envelope. Inside was bank statements for an account unfamiliar to me at a bank we'd previously used. 3 months prior, the account was established in January with an initial deposit of $50,000. A chill ran down my spine as I realized this money originated from our shared investment account, a withdrawal that Roger had specified for our planned kitchen renovation. However, it never made its way there. Instead, it found its way into this clandestine account, now holding about $47,000. The question lingered. Where did the missing $3,000 vanish? My search led me to a third envelope, filled with receipts. One was for an unrecognized attorney. Another bore the signature of a private investigator. Blackwell Investigations, subtly embossed in gray. More were from a posh Boston jewelry store, amounting to over $3,000. In recent times, no such jewels arrived from Roger. The image crystallizing was both lucid and heart-wrenching. Over the past 3 months, Roger withdrew a considerable amount from our shared accounts, sought legal advice, hired a private detective, bought jewelry for someone else, and took out a large life insurance policy on me. This suggested a grim reality, though initially unimaginable. My spouse of 42 years appeared to be engaged in an affair and contemplating a permanent escape from marital responsibilities. In his office chair, I found myself surprisingly composed amidst the scattered documents. The emotional turmoil was imminent, I knew. But for now, the rational teacher within me took charge. I required solid evidence, not mere suspicion. Most critically, I needed self-preservation. With meticulous care, I put everything back in its rightful place, leaving no hint of my investigation behind. Then I dialed 3 numbers. First, our family attorney, not the one Roger had contacted. Second, our financial advisor. To my longtime friend Margaret, the third on my list. She had been by my side during every trial since college. When Roger returned from his physical therapy, I had regained composure and devised a strategy. I would observe, wait, and collect proof. I would ensure my personal finances and legal protection. And I would uncover what or who led my husband to such drastic actions after over 4 decades of what I thought was a content marriage. "How did therapy go?" I inquired as he entered the kitchen, maintaining an unexpected calmness. "It's always the same, painful yet essential," he replied, demonstrating his shoulder roll. "Weiss believes another month and I might recover fully." I nodded empathetically, pondering if anything would ever return to normal. That's great. I prepared lunch if you're hungry. As we ate sandwiches in quiet companionship, a silence now laden with unvoiced doubts and betrayals, I scrutinized the man opposite me. His face I knew too well, hands that cradled mine in life's significant moments. Childbirths, health scares, parental deaths, lips whispering, I love you countless nights. Yet, who was this man truly? What powers did he possess? Those answers I dreaded could shatter the world we had constructed together. But I needed to know, regardless of what transpired next. I had to find out. Over a span of 2 weeks, I transformed into an investigator within my own household. Tracking Roger's arrivals and departures, scrutinizing his phone usage, observing his emotions, jotting down mysterious absences, eavesdropping on hushed phone calls. Snippets of conversations that should have set off alarms remained mere whispers in the air. Bank account transactions were watched with a keen eye through online banking, each movement under observation. Unaware or unperturbed, Roger continued our familiar routines. Sharing meals, enjoying shows, discussing family and grandkids. Every morning and evening, he gave me goodbyes and hellos. We shared not one but two intimate moments. Yet afterward, I felt emptiness and bewilderment. Was it him faking affection, or had I conjured a complex fiction from an insurance policy and bank transfers with simple explanations? However, the business trip came as a shock. A 3-day conference in Chicago, mentioned offhandedly during dinner one night about the American Engineers Association's panel on structural innovations. It seemed nice. In our 42 years of marriage, Roger had hardly ever attended any conference without me. When is it? Next week, from Tuesday to Thursday. The timing raised suspicions. My yearly checkup with Dr. Bennett was scheduled for that Wednesday. Months ago, a standing appointment Roger had scheduled on our shared calendar. That evening, following Roger's slumber, I covertly exited the bed and scrutinized his laptop once more. To my astonishment, it was left untouched on the kitchen counter and unlocked. Maybe he grew complacent, or maybe he believed I posed no threat. His browsing history displayed inquiries about Chicago hotels and flights, supporting his narrative. However, I also noticed something troubling. Searches for undetectable poisons, natural toxins mimicking heart attacks, and the typical investigation time for unexpected deaths by police. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just paranoia, it was a grim reality. I snapped photographs of the screen with my phone and meticulously closed the browser to its previous state. Back in bed, I lay awake, listening to Roger's peaceful breath beside me. The man I had loved for most of my life appeared to be researching methods to take my life. The next day, I reached out to Margaret. Please come stay with me next week. I didn't preface my words when she responded. Elena, what's wrong? Worry echoed through the phone. Roger's attending a conference. I don't wish to be alone. I hesitated to express my deep-rooted anxieties. Not just yet. Not until I had undeniable proof. Margaret, who'd been a detective's wife for 3 decades before Harold retired, understood the circumstance better than most, and I trusted her judgment completely. Tuesday through Thursday, Roger departed Tuesday morning, taking his overnight bag with him as he bid me farewell at the door. He assured me he'd call when he landed. Minutes after his car vanished down the street, I dialed Margaret. Gone. Can you come over now? 30 minutes later, she was there, her overnight bag in one hand and a box of corroborating documents in the other. As soon as she stepped in, she requested to see everything. I presented all the items: insurance policy, bank statements, receipts, browser history. Margaret scrutinized each item meticulously, her countenance gradually darkening. She suggested I contact the police eventually. I declined. What could I present? Suspicious web searches? A legitimate life insurance policy? They would likely dismiss me. Then she insisted we gather more evidence and that I require safety. She won't abandon my side until we resolve this. That night, Roger phoned as arranged, his voice cordial through the speakerphone as Margaret and I listened. The hotel is magnificent, he said, right on the river with a panoramic city view. You would adore it, Elena. We should return together sometime. That sounds delightful, I replied, glancing at Margaret. She slightly shook her head, her face showing concern. How was your day? He asked. Peacefully engrossed in reading, I didn't bring up Margaret's presence. How did the conference go? It seemed captivating. I reconnected with Bill Harris. Remember him from the Philadelphia project? He's now working on groundbreaking sustainable material projects. Our chat carried on for a few minutes, nothing out of the ordinary. After we ended the call, Margaret let out a sigh. He's skillful, she said, almost in admiration. Or perhaps innocent, I tentatively suggested. Let's verify, she responded. Pulling out her phone, she dialed a number from memory. Harold, it's me. I need a favor. Could you ask your friend Steve at Chicago PD to check if Roger Derrick has registered at the Riverside Grand Hotel? See if he can confirm whether he checked in today. An hour later, her phone rang. She listened, thanked the caller, and hung up with a serious look on her face. No registration of Roger Derrick at the Riverside Grand. In fact, no engineering conference scheduled there this week. My world felt askew. Then where is he? That's what we need to find out. Firstly, it's crucial to ensure your safety upon his return. The following day was my doctor's visit, which strangely coincided with Roger's conference. My 64-year-old health was declared exceptional by Dr. Bennett. She encouraged me to continue my current routine. My blood work from the previous test was flawless. My heart is robust, and my blood pressure is optimal. I'll outlive us all, she cheered. As Margaret and I journeyed home, a concern struck me. The coffee, I suddenly said. What about the coffee? For the past month, Roger has been making my morning coffee, claiming he'd perfected the blend of beans to water. I gripped the dashboard tightly. Margaret, what if he's been experimenting with something undetectable by regular blood tests? Margaret held tighter on the wheel. When is he returning? He's due tomorrow afternoon. Then we'll be prepared for him. That night, we formulated a plan. Each day, Margaret would disappear in the morning, reappearing through the back entrance while staying hidden within our home. Normally, I would greet Roger upon his return and accept his regular coffee offer. Yet, I wouldn't drink it. As the morning unfolded, a text from Roger arrived. Arriving home early, flight landing at 11, eager to see me. Exchanging glances with Margaret, she announced changed arrangements. She was hiding now. By noon, when the sound of Roger's key turning in the lock echoed, Margaret had vanished into our seldom-used formal dining room with a vantage point overlooking the kitchen. I sat at the kitchen island engrossed in a book, feigning an innocent wife waiting for her husband's return. Elena. Upon entering, Roger called out, placing his bag in the entranceway. In the kitchen, I responded, my heart pounding audibly, fearful he could hear it. Emerging from the doorway, he smiled his customary smile that now seemed unfamiliar. Miss you? Indeed, I replied, trying to suppress a shudder as I prepared for our embrace. How's the remainder of the conference going? Illuminating. He planted a kiss on my cheek. Let me go freshen up, and then I'll share every detail over coffee. As Roger took his shower, I texted Margaret, it's happening. Prepare yourself. 20 minutes later, he reappeared in the kitchen looking revitalized with fresh attire, albeit damp hair. He instructed me to sit, saying he wished to tend to me first. You're always taking care of others, he noted. I complied, returning to my spot at the island, observing as he carefully prepared coffee using our French press. His actions were customary, precise, a trait Roger Derrick was well known for. In conversation, he mentioned his thoughts. We ought to embark on a journey. Perhaps the Amalfi Coast? You've always wanted to explore Italy, he suggested. That sounds delightful, I replied, struggling to swallow. He served 2 cups of coffee, adding just the right quantity of cream to mine, as per my preference. As he placed the cup before me, I detected an unusual scent, a faint metallic odor masked by the strong aroma of coffee. I might have overlooked it if I wasn't so attentive to every detail. Drink it while it's hot, Roger suggested, taking a sip from his own cup. Pretending to take a sip, I kept the liquid out of my mouth. Perfect, I said nonchalantly. Roger scrutinized me closely, an expression I hadn't seen before in his eyes. Was it anticipation or concern? You seem tense, he commented. I didn't sleep well with you away. I pushed the cup aside, moving it a bit further from me. Tell me about Chicago. How is the conference? Roger went on to describe the panels and speakers, events I now knew were false. As he spoke, I observed him frequently glancing at my untouched coffee cup, noticing how little I'd actually drunk. You're not drinking your coffee, he mentioned during a break in his story. It's still a bit hot, I assured him. I'll get to it. I smiled, my face stretching abnormally due to the exertion. All of a sudden, Roger moved towards the table, grasping my hand. Elena, are you absolutely certain you're okay? You seem quite pale. The sincerity in his tone made the situation even more surreal. This man, who had been part of my life for over 4 decades, was sitting opposite me, holding my hand, while a cup of poisoned coffee sat between us. In truth, I responded slowly, I am experiencing something unusual. Roger subtly altered his expression. Could it be relief? Perhaps you should rest. I can assist you upstairs. Instead, I replied swiftly, I'd rather stay here for a bit. He furrowed his brow, checking the time surreptitiously. At least finish your coffee. The caffeine might aid you. The moment hung tense with unvoiced apprehension. I knew I had to choose to confront or continue the act. In the end, my instincts prevailed. In fact, I said, I believe you should drink it. Roger stared at me, bewildered. What? Your coffee. You should drink it. His countenance grew somber. Stop joking around. I have my own brew. How about we trade? All of a sudden, I feel like having some black coffee. I nudged my cup towards him and grabbed for his. Roger's hand swiftly moved, grasping my wrist with unexpected force. Elena, what is this all about? The veneer was fading. I stared into the eyes of the man I had loved for most of my life, only to see a stranger staring back at me. I think, I whispered cautiously, that you should clarify the contents of my coffee, Roger. His grip on my wrist intensified painfully. You're not making any sense. Perhaps you're experiencing some kind of breakdown. I should contact Dr. Bennett. I saw her just yesterday. She says I'm in perfect health. I visited where I claim to go. Unlike you, that's a fact. Roger's expression blanked, then reformed into a puzzled worry. Elena, you don't seem well. Let me help you to bed. We can figure this out then. No. With great effort, I freed my wrist from his grasp. What requires clarification from you are details about the insurance policy, hidden bank account, jewelry receipts, and the lethal substance you've attempted to administer. The change was sudden and petrifying. The facade crumbled utterly, exposing an emotion I had never witnessed on my husband's face in 42 years of our marriage. Chilling, calculating, bereft of the affection I thought I had cherished for most of my life. For how long have you been aware of this? He asked, his tone emotionless. Long enough was my response. I retreated, suddenly trembling with a fear I had never felt in our home. Roger's eyes darted to my untouched coffee, then back at me. A menacing glint flickered in his gaze. Margaret, I called out, maintaining a steady tone despite the terror surging within me. From the dining room entrance, Margaret appeared, her phone raised, capturing the scene. It's all on video, Roger, she stated. The coffee, the exchange, everything. Roger's face distorted with fury. He charged across the counter, knocking over cups, his hands reaching for my neck. However, Margaret outran him. The large wooden chopping board struck the back of Roger's head, causing him to fall to the ground. I retreated stumblingly, gasping, as Margaret hastened to my side. Are you all right? I managed a nod, speechless, staring at my husband's unconscious form on our kitchen floor. The same floor where we had danced for our 40th anniversary, and where our grandchildren took their first steps. Margaret informed me that she had dialed 911 already. They are en route. I collapsed into a chair, feeling drained all of a sudden. Indeed, he was attempting to kill me, Margaret agreed gravely, and based on his expression when you confronted him, he would have succeeded at some point. She motioned towards the spilled coffee. We'll need to keep that as proof. As the sound of sirens drew near in the distance, I looked around our kitchen, which had been the central hub of our family home for decades. Photos on the fridge, funny vacation magnets, art from grandkids, all chronicling our shared past, seemed to rest upon a base of deception, or had it just started to crumble? Had Roger ever truly loved me before something shifted? Before someone else came to matter more than 42 years of marriage? I was unsure, but as police officers invaded our home and paramedics tended to the unresponsive stranger on my kitchen floor, I understood I had time to discern. Thanks to a questionable insurance policy, a metallic odor in my coffee, and the intuition born from a lifetime of scrutinizing details, I would survive to expose the truth, whatever it entailed. The police station reeked of industrial cleaner and old coffee. In an interview room, a glass of water, untouched, sat before me, Margaret, a comforting presence by my side. Detective Harriman, a woman of short stature with astute eyes and early graying hair, scrutinized my statement for the third occasion. Let me verify my comprehension, she stated, looking up from her jottings. You uncovered a life insurance policy taken out on you secretly. You found proof of enigmatic financial dealings. You verified your spouse was not where he declared to be. Following his return, you suspect he attempted to poison you. Yes, I affirmed succinctly. My voice echoed unfamiliar in my ears, thin and detached, as if it belonged to another person. Additionally, do you have supporting documents for the financial transactions and insurance policy? I responded, my lawyer has duplicates of everything. I handed over all the evidence I discovered when I found it. Detective Harriman acknowledged with a nod, jotting down another point. Intelligent, she remarked. Regarding the coffee, the officers collected samples from both cups and the French press. Margaret intervened. I ensured they followed protocol in preserving everything. Harriman nearly smiled as his lip twitched. Ex-law enforcement. Married to a detective for 30 years. A glance of comprehension passed between them. Well, Mrs. Derrick, the coffee samples have been sent to the lab for examination. Your husband is being treated medically at present, but upon discharge, he'll be brought in for interrogation. I then inquired. The course of action depends on the findings from the coffee and his statement. She closed her notebook. For now, it would be best if you don't return home. Do you have somewhere to stay? Margaret asserted resolutely that she was coming with me. My husband is a retired detective. He'll ensure her safety. Harriman seemed content with this plan. We will contact you as soon as we have further details. In the interim, if you recall anything else potentially relevant, call me directly. She pushed a business card across the table. As we departed the station, the full gravity of my predicament became apparent. My husband of 42 years is in custody, suspected of trying to kill me. I found myself without a home due to betrayal, and I was clueless about the reasons behind my husband's alleged attempt on my life. Why had Roger resorted to such drastic measures after what I thought was a contented marriage for decades? I saw answers from Margaret as we journeyed towards her home during the elongating twilight. She responded, keeping her gaze fixed on the road, that we would now discover why your husband attempted to harm you. Margaret and Harold's guest room served as my refuge in the ensuing days. Harold, a man of considerable size with soft eyes and an innate detective's cynicism, took responsibility for retrieving necessary belongings from my residence, while the police meticulously processed the scene. Upon his return, he informed us that the place was swarming with technicians. They were being thorough, which was good. They were collecting everything, examining surfaces. If Roger had any traces of past attempts, they would uncover it. My stomach turned at the possibility that the coffee Roger had been preparing for me every morning could have included progressively higher amounts of a poisonous substance, thallium, without any noticeable taste or smell. On the third day following Roger's arrest, Detective Harriman contacted me with an update. The lab tests confirmed traces of this tasteless, odorless poison in my coffee cup. In small doses, it mimics various illness symptoms, while in larger doses, it can be lethal and is sometimes called the poisoner's poison, due to its difficulty to detect without specific testing. However, Roger used an excessive amount, which explains the metallic smell I noticed. Could he have scheduled his business trip around my doctor's appointment to avoid detection by blood work? I questioned whether he had intentionally timed it that way. Possibly, but we're still investigating this aspect. Harriman hesitated before adding something else. In our investigation, we uncovered that your husband has been involved in a relationship with a woman named Christine Lauder for about 6 months. Regardless of the poisoned coffee and attempted murder, the revelation of my 42-year marriage's shocking end through his betrayal still left me deeply hurt. Upon learning her name, I struggled to respond. How old is she? I inquired, feeling weakened by the question. She's 61, a widow, was the answer. Apparently she thought your husband was also a widower. I sank onto Margaret's guest bed. The phone clenched in my trembling hand. Had he told her of my demise? It seemed so. We planned to question her later today. She might have been unaware of his real circumstances and motives. After hanging up, I remained frozen, struggling to comprehend this fresh revelation. Your husband didn't merely betray me with another woman. It appears he deceived her about my survival as well. He completely erased me from existence, forming a false narrative where I didn't exist. Maybe in his mind, that made it simpler to consider bringing the fiction to life. Margaret found me still seated there an hour later, gazing vacantly at the wall. Elena? What did Harriman say? I repeated the information mechanically, each word feeling like shards of glass on my tongue. When I finished, Margaret sat next to me, taking my hand. I'm really sorry. 42 years, I whispered. Was any of it true? Margaret squeezed my hand. I don't know, but we're going to find out. The following day, Detective Harriman called again, this time asking that I visit the station. We've questioned Ms. Lauder and your husband. I believe you should hear what we've discovered. Harold drove us to the station, his inherent protection heightened by his law enforcement background. You don't have to do this today, he reminded me as we parked. It can wait until you're prepared. But I was ready. The initial stun has been replaced by a frosty resolve to comprehend the circumstances surrounding my marriage's demise and why my husband of over 4 decades deemed my death more desirable than divorce. Detective Harriman greeted us in the lobby, her countenance solemn. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Derrick. Following me, please. Instead of the interrogation room from my previous visit, she directed us to a conference room. A laptop was arranged on the table along with a stack of documents. Before I present these materials to you, let me warn you, some of this may be hard to bear. However, based on our conversations with your husband and Ms. Lauder, As well as evidence retrieved from your residence and various locations, we have constructed a sequence of events that culminated in the assassination attempt against you. I nodded, gathering my resolve. I understand. Harriman reached for the folder. Based on our findings, it appears your husband initiated a relationship with Christine Lauder around 7 months ago, following their encounter at a charity event for the hospital where his sister received cancer treatment. Notably, Ms. Lauder is part of the hospital's board. She presented a photograph of an older woman, silver-haired and graceful, adorned in expensive attire. While she was undeniably attractive, she was not young. This was not a trophy girlfriend, but an equal. From the start, he portrayed himself as a widower. According to Ms. Lauder, he informed her that his wife, you, had passed away from cancer 3 years prior. I found myself struggling to grasp the extent of deception needed to uphold such a falsehood. However, we frequently socialize. We share mutual friends and family. How could he have presumed no one would ever mention you? He took great care to keep Ms. Lauder away from his existing social circles. The relationship primarily unfolded in Boston, where she owns an apartment. He'd frequent her place under the guise of attending engineering events or work commitments. The enigmatic disappearances during recent months finally started making sense. Late nights, weekend golf games that never brought home any trophies or anecdotes. Amidst all this, our usual marital routine persisted. Dinner parties, family visits, maintaining the rhythm of decades-long matrimony. As their relationship advanced, Harriman added, Ms. Lauder was pushing for a permanent living arrangement. She wanted him to cohabit with her, to cease dwelling in what she deemed as a sanctuary dedicated to his late spouse. Apparently, Roger was growing increasingly anxious about this proposition. Because his departed wife was very much present and residing there, I commented, the biting irony of it almost choked me. Agreed. About 3 months back, we suspect he started contemplating a definitive resolution to his predicament. In a cold, clinical manner, suggesting permanence instead of homicide, the proposal seemed even more chilling. The monetary dealings you uncovered were, indeed, part of the scheme, Harriman explained, scattering various documents across the table. The $50,000 withdrawn from your shared investment account was divided. Some went into the account you found, which seems to have been set aside as a financial buffer during the transitional period following your demise. The jewelry purchases were gifts from his launder. Each disclosure felt like another punch, but I kept my composure. Decades of enforcing classroom discipline proved useful in this moment of intense emotional turmoil. And the life insurance policy? I queried, maintaining a steady tone. That's where things get intriguing. Harriman subtly changed his expression. The policy was indeed obtained without your knowledge or approval, constituting fraud. However, there's a detail you might have overlooked in the paperwork. She pushed another document towards me, revealing a copy of the insurance policy I uncovered earlier. She directed my attention to an overlooked section. The policy was started on March 10th, but it stated that no death benefits would be granted for any death happening within 30 days after the policy's effective date. Your husband's attempt to poison you took place on April 8th. As I scrutinized the document, realization began to dawn. It was a week too early. Precisely. If he had killed you successfully, the insurance company wouldn't have paid the death benefit. The policy would have been virtually worthless. I looked at her perplexed, but why? Why buy a policy and act before it would provide coverage? This was what left us puzzled initially, as Harriman admitted later. It didn't add up unless the insurance policy wasn't the main objective. What do you mean? From our investigations and findings, we suspect your spouse was under escalating pressure from his lover to make their relationship public and live together permanently. The presence of a living wife presented an insurmountable hurdle for these plans. So he chose to eliminate the obstacle. I stated bluntly, yes. Yet he also needed financial stability. The life insurance was intended to provide that. But he mistakenly thought the waiting period was 15 days instead of 30. I almost chuckled at the absurdity of it. My spouse of 42 years attempted to murder me for another woman, and overlooked reading the fine print on the insurance policy meant to support his new life. What's next? I inquired. Your husband has been charged with attempted murder, insurance fraud, and several related offenses. Given the evidence, his attorney may advise him to accept a plea deal, but that's still being discussed. Has Lauder been implicated in your husband's schemes or his actual marital status? At present, there's no proof indicating her knowledge of his intentions. Instead, she too seems to have fallen prey to his deceit, although in a distinct manner. I nodded, taking it all in. Is there anything else vital for me to know? Harriman seemed hesitant. There is one additional detail. Upon our search of your residence, We uncovered a journal concealed in your husband's golf bag. The notebook contains intricate accounts of his relationship with Ms. Lauder, his escalating animosity towards you, and ultimately, his plans to eliminate you. She pushed a plastic evidence bag over the table towards me. Inside was a small leather-bound book unfamiliar to me. She clarified it was a replica. The original is in evidence. However, we thought it would aid your comprehension, if any understanding can be found in such an extraordinary circumstance. I scrutinized the diary, unsure if I wished to uncover a man's private thoughts who had been my bedmate, my home companion, my partner for over 4 decades, yet deemed it more desirable to take my life instead of dealing with the societal and financial intricacies of divorce. Thank you, I replied eventually, accepting the journal wrapped in a bag. I'll ponder it. As I prepared to depart, Harriman offered me an introspective gaze. Mrs. Derrick, I've been in this profession for 20 years, and I've witnessed all kinds of treachery. But what your husband did, the calculations, the deception sustained over months while living as your spouse, it's remarkable. I wish you to understand that none of this is a reflection on you. Some people conceal their authentic nature incredibly well. Her words were intended to console me, but they merely accentuated the devastating truth confronting me. The man I had loved and trusted for most of my existence had never been genuine. Margaret and Harold's guest room served as my sanctuary, as spring bloomed beyond the windows. For several days, I remained confined, stepping out only for meals, grappling with the disintegration of my marriage and the brink of my life's ruin. My journal lay untouched on the bedside table. I wasn't prepared yet to read Roger's words, to view our marriage through his growing contempt's skewed perspective. Not just yet. Instead, I concentrated on pragmatic issues. My lawyer assisted me in obtaining court orders that froze our shared assets and restrained Roger from making any financial decisions prior to the trial. I contacted our children, a heart-wrenching dialogue where I had to convey that their father was accused of attempting to kill me. Their disbelief and sorrow mirrored mine, a collective trauma we would all take years to recover from. I can hardly believe it, Sarah said tearfully over the phone. Dad, our dad tried to... I can't even say it. I know, I consoled, allowing maternal instincts to override my own pain. I can scarcely believe it myself, but why? Why persist with divorce when you could simply ask for one? This was the question that lingered, a constant echo within me. What drove you to commit murder instead of choosing divorce? The monetary implications would have been roughly equivalent. Emotionally, our family might have endured, but surviving would have been a struggle. Why would death appear to be the more favorable choice? 2 weeks following Roger's arrest, I finally revisited his journal. The first entry was penned 6 months prior, coinciding with the hospital fundraiser where he met Christine Lauder. His handwriting, so familiar from years of birthday cards and shopping lists, filled the pages with a narrative that seemed almost alien. Met an exceptional woman tonight. Christine Lauder, graceful, intelligent, financially self-reliant, holds a seat on the hospital board. Felt an instant bond. Something I hadn't felt in years. Against my will, I persisted in reading, uncovering layer after layer of my spouse's secret life and his growing animosity towards me and our marriage. When I told Christine that my wife had died 3 years ago from cancer, the lie slipped out effortlessly, which should have unsettled me more than it did. Yet, it seemed like another reality, one where opportunities were yet to be discovered. For years, Elena and I have been going through the motions. She doesn't perceive it or chooses not to acknowledge it. Regardless, when I'm with Christine, I feel reborn. As time went on, his justifications grew complex, his attitude towards me increasingly scornful. Today, Elena inquired about the conference in Philadelphia. Once more, a lie. Instead, I spent the weekend at Christine's Boston apartment. The deceit is becoming routine. Elena remains oblivious. She's preoccupied with her book club and grandchildren to notice my absence. At times, I ponder if she would even notice if I vanished completely. The callousness was awe-inspiring. This man cohabited my bed, shared meals, lived my life, all while secretly scornful of my satisfaction with our retirement, grandchildren, and peaceful routines. Christine presses me to relocate permanently with her, repeatedly questioning why I still reside in the tomb for your deceased wife. The irony is not lost on me. My dead wife is very much alive, preparing dinner and asking about my day. If only she knew, then 3 months ago, the entries took a grim turn. Investigated divorce today. The potential financial repercussions are overwhelming. Half of everything we've amassed over 42 years would go to Elena. My pension divided, the house sold. At my age, starting anew with such financial limitations is inconceivable. There must be another solution. The other solution gradually crystallized in subsequent entries. A plan so cold-blooded, it was challenging to fathom. It originated from someone I had loved and trusted completely. Looked into life insurance policies today. If Elena were to pass away suddenly, our financial situation would be altered significantly. As her husband, I'd acquire all assets and receive the insurance payout, providing a clean break and a new beginning with Christine. Does it seem morally questionable that this scenario seems more rational to me? Detailed pages outlined my meticulously designed plan. Studies on poisons, discussions with lawyers about inheritance laws, setting up a financial safety net, strategically timing my supposed accidental death to avoid suspicion, all were part of the plan. Thallium appears to be the best option as it causes gradual poisoning over weeks, making it appear as a natural illness. By the time anyone might consider testing specifically for it, cremation would erase any evidence. Elena takes her coffee with cream, which will help hide any subtle taste. We plan to start administering small doses next week. The last entry, dated the day before his departure from the fictitious Chicago conference, was particularly chilling. Everything is in order, and the insurance policy has been activated. Final dose prepared. Elena's doctor visit was perfectly scheduled. She will discuss symptoms hinting at early heart troubles, yet no tests that could spark suspicion. Within a short span, it would all be done. A widower, now bereaved, will be free to move on, financially stable. Christine is already planning summer trips. The only remaining deception, the last act, and this double life will cease. Elena would never fathom what she had transformed into: an impediment to happiness, a financial burden, a reminder of decades of silent despair. This seems a better way, painless for her. Freedom for me. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. The man who kissed me goodbye every morning, attended our grandchildren's birthdays, brought me tea when I was unwell just a month ago, was he merely acting? Had our 42-year marriage been nothing but a meticulously crafted facade ending in this final, monstrous deception? I couldn't sleep that night. My thoughts were consumed by the disclosures from the journal, and come morning, I'd made up my mind. Neither Roger's malicious acts nor his betrayal would claim me, neither physically through poison nor emotionally through devastation. So I dialed Detective Harriman, requesting to speak with Christine Lauder upon her answering. A moment of hesitation echoed over the line. Mrs. Derrick, Harriman wasn't too sure if it was advisable, yet I insisted on knowing everything, and I thought she might share my desire for clarity. After some contemplation, Harriman consented to arrange a rendezvous at his office within the police station, under certain conditions. Christine Lauder had agreed, it seemed, just as eager for answers as myself. In 2 days, I found myself waiting in a modest conference room. As the door creaked open, there she was, the woman my husband was ready to take a life for. Christine Lauder was striking in person, tall and slender with elegantly styled silver hair and a face that gracefully aged. She wore an underplayed yet evidently high-priced navy dress, barely any jewelry, and a visage of utter sorrow. Addressing me as Mrs. Derrick, she spoke softly. I can't express how regretful I am. Please take a seat, I suggested, indicating the chair opposite me. She was Elena, her fragile composure evident as she sank into the chair. I wanted you to understand that I had no idea Roger was married. He led me to believe his wife, you, had passed away from cancer 3 years ago. He vividly described the treatments, hospice care, and every detail. Her voice cracked. I assumed every word he said was true. I observed her attentively, nodding. Detective Harriman found no evidence implicating Christine in Roger's schemes. Seeing her now, I shared her disbelief. Perhaps she had been more deceived than I, as their entire relationship was based on a fundamental falsehood. I didn't arrive here to criticize you, I emphasized. Instead, I sought clarity about the demise of my marriage. I suspected you might be seeking answers too. Christine's eyes filled with tears. How could he do this? To both of us, to our family? What kind of person would orchestrate such a thing? That's what I'm trying to comprehend. The man described in his journal, the man you knew, appears completely dissimilar from the husband I believed I had for 42 years. Journal. Christine appeared puzzled. I hesitated, then pushed the evidence bag containing Roger's journal across the table. The police discovered this. It contains all the details. His relationship with you, his growing animosity towards me, and eventually, his plan to kill me instead of facing divorce. Christine gazed at the journal as if it were a venomous snake without touching it. I'm unsure if I can read it. I understand. I nearly couldn't myself, but it provided answers I needed. Was any of it authentic? Her query mirrored my inner turmoil. I've pondered the same question for 42 years of marriage. When our eyes met, I asked her about me. He spoke of my deceased wife, mentioning that she was an English teacher, enjoyed gardening and classic movies, and our marriage had been content but tranquil, a routine. She hesitated before he added that by the end, I'd become rather predictable, lacking interest in adventures or novel experiences. The harsh truth hurt. He showed me photos of her garden, saying we built it together and maintaining it was his way to remember her. Her laughter echoed bitterness. Easily deceived, I bought the story of the widower caring for his dead wife's flowers, ready to love again. The image was reminiscent of a novel or poor cinema. I responded with unexpected dark humor. It's like something out of a novel or a terrible movie. Christine displayed a surprised expression before giving a slight, melancholic smile. Indeed, it was a terrible movie. We remained quiet for a while. Two females connected through the destructive actions of a man we had both loved in different capacities. Did he ever talk about our children? I eventually asked, and then the grandchildren? Christine nodded. He frequently spoke of them, in fact. Sarah and Michael were their names. The grandkids, Emma, Jack, and Lily, were included. He appeared genuinely proud, even showing me pictures. She paused. Doesn't it make things worse, though, that he could love them, be proud of them, while planning to destroy their family completely? I concluded. Yes, it does. Christine expressed genuine confusion, her voice filled with distress. If he wanted to be with me, why not just request a divorce? I have my own resources. He wouldn't have needed to, she said, unable to complete the thought further. According to his diary, the financial implications were unbearable for him. The division of assets, splitting the pension, selling the house. At our age, starting anew with fewer assets. I gestured helplessly. Killing me appeared to be a more convenient option. The stark statement lingered between us. You feel accountable, Christine admitted after a pause. If you hadn't pursued him, if you hadn't insisted on a permanent arrangement. No, I responded decisively. Whatever my husband transformed into, whatever sinister urges led him to this, they were not your doing. He opted for deceit at every turn, with you, with me, with everyone. Those decisions were his own. For almost 2 hours, we discussed the remnants of our relationships with Roger, attempting to piece together a rational account from the wreckage of his falsehoods. By the time we parted, a semblance of comprehension had emerged between us. Not camaraderie, undoubtedly, but an acknowledgement of shared suffering and the arduous path to healing that lay ahead. What's your next move? Christine inquired as we were about to depart. Rebuild, I replied succinctly. My life, my sense of security, my bonds with my children and grandchildren. Roger took much from me, but he won't have my future too. Christine showed a renewed determination in her face. No, he can't rob us of that. As we stepped out of the police station into the radiant spring afternoon, I felt a burden lifting. Not the entire weight of betrayal and death's brush, but enough to reveal a path ahead. The man I had loved for most of my existence tried to end my life. This truth would remain unchanged, unyielding in its terror. But I persevered. Not by fate or fortune, but through my own intuition, my own choices. I acknowledged the threat, gathered proof, hatched a plan, and eventually preserved my life by refusing the deadly cup. This awareness, grim as it was, gave me fortitude. Roger fell short, and I would too. Summer burst with an abnormal heat and humidity for early June. Transitioning from Margaret and Harold's guest room to a nearby apartment close to the community college marked my end of a 30-year tenure there before retirement. Familiar settings offered solace as I untangled my life from Roger's messy legal, financial, and emotional knots. The district attorney proposed a plea deal, 25 years for attempted murder, with further consecutive sentences for fraud and additional charges. With the compelling evidence stacked against him, including his own diary and tainted coffee, his court-appointed lawyer urged acceptance. Yet, characteristically arrogant, Roger rejected the offer, insisting on a trial. Seemingly confident he could sway a jury with doubts about his guilt despite the damning evidence. The trial was slated for September. During this period, I primarily concentrated on rebuilding my life. Regular meetings with my attorney, financial advisor, and a therapist specializing in trauma and betrayal became routine. Frequently, my children visited, their initial shock and disbelief transitioning into a fierce protective attitude that was both heartwarming and occasionally overwhelming. Mom, you should move to Portland, Sarah suggested during one visit. Be near us, near Emma. We have that mother-in-law suite that's just sitting empty. Alternatively, Atlanta was Michael's suggestion during his turn. The boys would enjoy having Grandma close by. I acknowledged their concern, but knew I had to make my own choices and carve out my own path forward. I'm not quite ready to leave yet, I told them softly. This is still my community, my support system, but I promise to examine all possibilities once the trial concludes. The trial, a constant presence in my thoughts, was both dreaded and awaited. I would need to testify, confront Roger in a courtroom, vocalize the intricacies of his betrayal, and my near-fatal experience evading his lethal scheme. A week prior to the trial, Detective Harriman phoned with unanticipated information. Mrs. Derrick, Roger has switched his stance. He's accepting the plea bargain. I sank heavily onto my small apartment couch. What caused this transformation? His lawyer received the entire evidence package, including lab technician testimony regarding thallium levels in your coffee. It seems that the undeniable scientific evidence in writing finally made him understand that his defense had no prospect of success. A wave of relief washed over me. No trial, no repetition in public of the most agonizing episode of my life. No encounter with Roger across a courtroom, gazing upon the face I had cherished for decades, now filled with animosity and cunning. What's next? He'll appear before a judge next week for a formal plea and sentencing. You are entitled to deliver a victim impact statement if you choose. Did I desire to address him? To express the destruction Roger had inflicted, the trust he shattered, the life he nearly took? I was uncertain. I replied that I would consider it. However, as the court date drew nearer, I became more certain that I needed to speak. Not for Roger's gain, but for mine. I required standing in that courtroom, facing my potential murderer, and reclaiming my story from the twists in his journal. The courtroom was smaller than anticipated, warm despite the air conditioner combating summer heat. I seated myself at the front row, Margaret beside me, my children on either side like guardian sentinels. Roger remained at the defense table, shoulders slumped in a posture I had never witnessed before, defeated, reduced. When he entered his guilty plea, his voice was barely audible. The judge asked him to speak louder, to verify that he comprehended the charges and the sentence he was accepting. Roger obeyed, his sight glued to the table, never deviating towards me. Then it was my turn. I made my way to the podium, my speech in hand, yet as I stood before the court, I abandoned the paper. The words I had rehearsed weren't enough. My name is Elena Derrick. I embarked on voice training. For 42 years, I thought I was wed to a man who cherished me, who valued me, who would shield me from danger, not transform into its architect. Now Roger raised his eyes, his countenance impenetrable. The figure seated at that table conspired my demise with fastidious precision. He researched poisons, devised alibis, calculated financial gains, all while sharing meals with me, sleeping next to me, participating in family events. He did this not in a fit of passion or fleeting insanity, but through months of calculated, methodical planning. I paused, gathering resolve for what followed. In his personal records, my spouse portrayed me as an impediment to his contentment, a financial strain, and a symbol of what he termed decades of silent torment. He deemed it more expedient to take my life instead of divorcing me or having an open dialogue about the state of our union. Roger's eyes sank once more, his posture slightly stooping. I wished the court to grasp the gravity of this deception. This was not a crime born out of opportunity or instinct. It was meticulously planned, researched, and rehearsed through gradual doses given over weeks. This was a man who, after 42 years of marriage, deemed my life insignificant beyond its inconvenience to his future aspirations. My tone remained resolute, fueled by an accumulating wrath since I first discovered the insurance policy. I read through every page, every intricate plan for my demise, every callous disregard for our shared past. And I want him to realize something. I fixed my gaze on Roger, waiting until he hesitantly lifted his eyes to mine. You failed. Not just in your attempt to kill me, but in comprehending who I am. You wrote that I was oblivious, rigid, and gullible. However, you were mistaken. I detected the insurance policy. I queried your unexplained absences. I recognized the metallic odor in the coffee you so meticulously prepared. I preserved my life by using the very qualities you disregarded. Roger's face paled. His eyes locked with mine now in what seemed to be genuine astonishment. The sentence you're receiving today is deserved, but no prison term can truly compensate for the life you took from me. Not through death, but through the devastation of 42 years of memories, now forever stained by the awareness of your true nature. I drew a deep breath, reaching the end of what I needed to express. Despite all that transpired, I stand here today not as a victim, but as a survivor. You didn't manage to kill me, nor will you erase my ability to experience joy, trust, or look forward to a meaningful future. That was the ultimate flaw in your meticulous scheme. I will rebuild. I will prosper. I will find happiness once more. With that, I resume my seat, my legs trembling, yet my spirit undaunted. The judge acknowledged my statement before proceeding with the formal sentencing. 25 years as per the agreement, with no chance of parole for at least 20 years. As Roger was taken away in handcuffs, he turned to look at me momentarily. Perhaps it was a glimpse of remorse, or just the final realization that he had underestimated me entirely. Regardless, it was the last time I would see the man I wedded. The man who shared my life, the man who orchestrated my death. The door closed behind him, and with it, a significant, extended chapter of my life concluded. Outside the courthouse, encompassed by my children, Margaret and Harold, along with several close friends who offered their support, I raised my face towards the late summer sun. "Mom, are you all right?" Sarah questioned, wrapping her arm around my shoulders. "No," I replied truthfully, "but I will be." For the first time since finding that insurance policy in a drawer 4 months ago, I wholeheartedly believe this sentiment. The rugged and picturesque coastline of southern Maine lay before me under the crisp autumn light. Seated on the tiny deck of my rental cottage, a hot cup of tea I had prepared myself providing warmth against the October chill, I had pieced together a new life during the past year. The intricate process of separating our assets legally had been challenging yet equitable, leaving me financially secure, if not affluent. I sold our family home, finding it difficult to picture living there again, and invested part of the proceeds in purchasing a small condominium within a senior community designed for active residents. The money I saved was for future travel, delayed encounters, and savings for my grandchildren's education. My bond with Christine Lauder changed in unforeseen ways. At first, we were connected only by our shared victimization. However, we cultivated a careful friendship based on mutual respect and comprehension. She relocated to California to be near her daughter and grandchildren, yet we conversed monthly, exchanging insights about our healing paths. The psychological effects of Roger's betrayal were arguably the toughest part of recovery. Learning to trust once more, not just potential romantic partners, but my own judgment was a gradual, laborious process. My therapist compared it to mending a fractured limb, involving slow strengthening, occasional setbacks, continuous effort, but I've made strides, substantial strides. I have embraced new friendships, new experiences, and fresh views on what my remaining years could offer, possibly including new love. Without prompt, David emerged from the doorway behind me. "Is your tea cooling?" he inquired, his Scottish accent subtly present. "Perfect temperature," I responded, grinning as he took a seat next to mine. David Fraser had become a part of my life 6 months ago, a retired history professor and widower who shared my passion for literature and hiking. Our bond had grown gradually, both of us bearing emotional wounds from our past. His due to grief, mine stemming from betrayal. "Anything on your mind?" he inquired, his worn hand covering mine on the balcony railing, as if lost in thought. A year had passed since the verdict. David acknowledged with a nod, comprehending without further explanation. I had disclosed everything to him at the outset of our friendship, seeking complete transparency about the ordeal that had dominated my recent life. "And how do you feel about this milestone?" he inquired. After careful contemplation, I responded, "I feel lighter." Relieving an unperceived weight, I found solace in his affirmative squeeze. "Certainly," he said softly. "You've earned that freedom, Selena. Post all the joy life can offer you." We remained quiet, observing seagulls swirl against the evening sky. A lighthouse pulsed its steady light, a symbol of caution and guidance. My phone whispered a message from Sarah, a fresh photo of Emma, now 4, with her missing tooth grinning widely. I shared it with David, who responded warmly. "So, you're visiting them next week, correct?" From Thursday to Monday. Emma is eager for her dance recital. Once more, we slipped into tranquil silence. This quality was one of the reasons I admired David. His ability to embrace silent moments, and his resistance to overfill conversations with words. After some contemplation, he shared, "I've been pondering a winter getaway. Somewhere sunny, maybe the Bahamas or southern Spain's coast. Looking straight at you now, would you fancy accompanying me?" The proposition was thoughtfully worded, acknowledging my autonomy, potential reservations, and healing emotions. Yet there was optimism in his gaze, accompanied by something extra. A year prior, such a proposition would have instilled fear. The concept of confiding in another man, exposing my vulnerabilities, seemed unattainable. But now, As the lighthouse beam continued its rhythmic rotation, I found myself mulling over possibilities instead of perils. I reckon, I responded, taking time, that Spain in winter could be captivating. The sunshine and history appealed to me, just like David's smile, steady, enlightening, dependable, perfect. We'll initiate the planning when you're back from Portland. As twilight turned into evening, we withdrew indoors to cook dinner together, a straightforward meal consisting of fish chowder and crusty bread. The compact kitchen in our cottage was filled with the aroma of herbs and spices, the familiar act of cooking side by side offering a blend of novelty and comfort. Later, while sipping wine near the small fireplace, I pondered over the extraordinary year's voyage, from uncovering deception to averting poisoning by a hair's breadth, from the heartbreaking disclosures at the trial to the slow, laborious path of reconstruction. Each milestone had led me to this tranquil moment of serene satisfaction in a coastal cottage, accompanied by a man who desired nothing more than my companionship. Roger had faltered in every aspect of his scheme. He hadn't claimed my life. He hadn't annihilated my capacity for happiness. He hadn't even managed to expunge love from my upcoming days. His last present for me inadvertently bestowed freedom, liberating me from a marriage devoid of substance for years, enabling me to recognize my inner strength, empowering me to redesign my life according to my own principles. David offered more wine, disrupting my contemplation. I smiled, accepting the invitation. Yes, please. In silence, I raised my glass in tribute to myself. To the woman who uncovered an insurance policy hidden away, who detected a metallic odor in her coffee, who heeded her intuition and preserved her life, to the woman who unmasked a potential killer, to the woman I have become. If you appreciated this tale of resilience and retribution, please like, subscribe, and click that notification button to stay informed of future uploads from her true narratives. Have you ever encountered a situation where something felt amiss and your instincts shielded you? Share your tales in the comments section below. And remember, sometimes the person most worthy of trust is yourself.